Good day, folks. Today we're going to knock out this scene, which basically means ink and paint and getting the backgrounds in there. To give you a little context, let's transition over here to the video edit. And actually, I'll just roll back. I want to kind of get some, as I say, some context here. So this shot was done fairly recently in Blender. And that would be a Krita shot there. And so we're going to be coming up shortly on the new shot. So yeah, actually this is kind of interesting because there's a number of shots here that I'm not having to redo, which is kind of nice. But now we're up to this shot, and after this shot, you know, it's pretty much non-stop action. And again, we'll see how much of this old stuff we can keep. I think a lot of it's pretty good, and maybe a little bit of ink work or improved tweens would help it out a bit. But here's where we're at today, and this shot was done a long time ago in Blender. And I didn't bother to do any ink and paint. This was back before the Blender 2.8 final release came out. So I've already gone through and inked, and basically what I'm going to do is if I bump into any major like stupid software glitches or whatever, I'll just put this video in speed mode and kind of race through it. So first thing I want to do is go through and clean up the ink work such as it is. Now this whole shot does go by pretty quickly. Let's just let it play. So we've got probably a little more latitude than usual when it comes to detail, but if we zoom way in here, you can see how sloppy I was on my my ink work. I was really just kind of banging out the drawings back in the day when I did it. So I'm in draw mode, and so now since I'm zoomed in really far, I should be able to fairly readily go through and clean things up. So in Blender, what I'm doing here is I'm hitting the control key. Now you can actually hit control shift, and this works quite well to draw a rubber band. Okay, unless it doesn't work. Am I in the lines? Did I get this wrong? It's not shift. Shift turns on the smoothing. Control turns on the erasing. So I'm wondering, where is my, there it is. Control Alt. So you want to hit CTL plus ALT, and that allows you to draw a rubber band around your stuff and just knock it on out of there. So no big deal here. As you can see, I've got real-time smoothing going on in the ink pen. But as I mentioned the other day, if you hit the shift key, you also can get the regular stabilizer, which is the same kind that used to be in the Blender, and I think it probably still is in the Blender UV editor. Works quite well. So cool beans. Let's pull out, and now let's just start kind of working backwards here. Yep, there's an issue, as you can see. And I'm going to do my little trick, Control Alt, grab all of this. Okay, and then we can just go in and kind of put this detail back in. Alright, got one there too, as a matter of fact, don't we? Okay, so boom, 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 boom. Oh, gotta draw it back in. Okay, little tiny issue here. Nice. And okay, I see what happened there. Alright, so let me check one thing. I think if we zoom way out, that hilt might already be in there. Yes, it is. So this is kind of an interesting thing. Let's look at what I want to do is, actually let's go into front mode so it's a little more obvious. Obviously a lot of the action here has to do with the camera moves. So what I'm wondering is whether these repeated drawings, whether these keys are even necessary. It looks like they are, because I let's say, cell animated the Akari's move. So yeah, in an alternate universe, I suppose maybe it would have been wiser to put the knife in a separate layer. However, that's okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see if I can actually do a little bit of a kludge here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode. We'll see if this works, but I'm going to hit Control, and I'm just going to grab these, hit Control C, and let's see if we can paste them in. Ooh, that's problematic. Okay, Control Z. It's interesting. Why would that displace? Okay, so I'm in this frame, and if I were in draw mode, drawing something doesn't obviously kill a keyframe that's already there. So my question is, why would pasting those strokes in cause everything else to disappear? That seems like a bug to me. You guys agree? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go here, and now let's paste in the strokes in this layer. Okay, now that's very interesting. No, hold on. It looks like it put them. Okay, so here's what I need to do. Okay, here's what we need to do. It just goes to prove there's always a way. All right, just to make this cleaner, I'm going to go like this and kind of start from scratch. What I actually need to do here is hit the M key and move these strokes to a new layer. Okay. And by moving them to a new layer, they're effectively overlaying all of these other keys here. So that's not a bad solution. So then here, probably I can go back into draw mode, I suspect, here, and in the GP layer, which we're going to rename here in a minute, just hit a dot. Okay, now let's take a look. Okay, so yeah, it didn't. I know what went wrong there. I didn't move the points from this frame. I moved the strokes. So that means that any points that were attached to the strokes I'd selected got moved as well. Well, that's okay. That's okay. So what we'll do is we'll go here and we'll just patch this up, kind of the way we've been doing. So Control Alt. So yeah, I mean that's an interesting, interesting little problem to have and solve. Okay, so now I see another issue, which seems to be I don't see a keyframe being created here, even though I've got GP layer selected here. I just erased those, but it didn't create a key. So now I suspect when I go back, those strokes or those points are going to be gone again, and they are. Okay. So why don't okay, interestingly, I'm hitting undo. So it looks like what I need to do, again, there's always a way, is hit Shift D and duplicate this key, and now get rid of these points. And I'll just kind of draw her finger back in there like that. Okay, that did the trick. Okay, so now when we come up here, let me see something. Okay, here what we could do, if you can believe this, just for fun, there's two ways we can get rid of this little problem right here. We can either select the strokes, and by the way, if I hit the star key on my computer, it isolates the current layer. So that means then I can go like that. And so that's one way to fix it. But again, that gets rid of them back here as well, right? Okay, so that's problematic. So again, what I actually would need to do is duplicate this key, then delete it. All right. That way it's there until I need it to not be. Now another solution to that problem would have been to just keyframe this. If I'm over the eyeball and I hit the I key, and actually here's what I'm going to do. I don't want to muddy up my project with a bunch of keyframes that I don't want. So, but if you mouse over the eyeball here or here and hit the I key, Okay, and by the way, I was wrong. So let's hit undo a few times. Okay, so now that disappeared. Okay, so now we just learned something. What did we learn? Well, mousing over this eyeball and hit the I key, and doesn't work. If you're gonna keyframe visibility for a grease pencil layer, you've got to do it over here in the layer stack. So, yeah, I didn't know that. So now I do. Now I do. All right, so now let's pull back here, and obviously we've got some slop in different places here, and I'm gonna say, okay, so here I think we have the same issue. Okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna do what I said right here. Boom, right there. I'm gonna turn this layer off. Okay, and I'm gonna keyframe that. So I'm hitting the I key. So that's keyframed, so it's turned off, and now I'm just going to go back one frame, turn it back on, and hit I again. So now we've got two keyframes, which we could look in the dope sheet and see this, or maybe not. I'm not even going to try to go find it, but visibility. I don't do this very often. Okay, I don't do this unless there's a really good reason to. Because what I have found is that, and it's probably just because of a deficit on my part, is that finding and modifying visibility keyframes in the dope sheet is not like brain dead simple. So to show you what I mean by that, if I go to the dope sheet, okay, so where is it? Well, I don't know. I need to let's grab this. Okay, so there it is. There it is, I think. I'm pretty sure that's it. That must be it. So yeah, high GP layer. Okay, so call me stupid. What's going on here is that the default behavior of the dope sheet is to show you whatever's currently active or selected, whatever the terminology Blender uses. So in order to get to those visibility keyframes, I had to select the grease pencil object in the outliner, which it's not the worst thing in the world, and I mean it keeps the dope sheet clean, which is quite nice. So we'll go with that. Now let's pull back a little bit, and I think we are at the place where we can finish up the painting work. Now one thing we see right here is between these two keys, because there's different keyframes in the line layer than there is in the paint layer, cause the paint to get a little out of sync here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all, let's save our work. I wonder if we could go ahead and merge these two layers now. Okay, so that would be, I believe here in the menu, would be merge down. Let's merge that down and scroll through it and see what happens. And see, that didn't really work. And I don't want to go back and like try to analyze why it didn't work. I'm sure there's a good reason. But as you can see, leaving it as is going to be less problematic. So I'm going to just go lines patch. We'll just call that the lines patch and go with it. So now let's go into the fills layer. And over here, we really want to be in the grease pencil so we can see where our keys are. And I find this a little disconcerting. Yeah. Let me show you again what just happened, because it's kind of significant. I was in the lines patch layer. Let's go to the grease pencil and make sure. Okay, so if I click, I'm in the lines patch layer. Okay, so I'm going to go to the dope sheet, and now here I'm going to click the fills layer. Go down here, grease pencil, dope sheet, and it's still on lines patch. I can click here to go to the fills layer, and I can also click here again to kind of remind Blender that, hey, we want to have the fills layer selected. But as you can see, if the grease pencil dope sheet does not have focus or is not visible, changes to the selected layer do not propagate until you have it visible, and then you have to redo it. So the question obviously becomes, if I were to start drawing, just let's find out. Let's find out. So I'm going to go to the lines patch layer and go to the grease pencil dope sheet. As you can see, I'm in the wrong layer. So now I'm going to select that so I know I've got selected what I wanted. As you can see, if I select the fills layer, it jumps between them as you would want me to. Okay, so I'm going to go to the dope sheet, select the fills. Alright, now I'm going to go back to the grease pencil dope sheet. As you can see, the lines patch layer is selected here and the fills layer is selected here. So with that, what I'm going to do is go into draw mode and draw something. Now the question is, did that just get drawn into the fills layer or into the lines patch layer? And that's interesting. If I select the lines, okay, so by clicking on it, it actually switched to the fills layer. So obviously it's in the fills layer. And so a couple things of interest here are, number one, I'm noticing that for whatever reason, I can't actually turn off the lines patch layer here. I can't turn off the visibility. Oh, I see. It's because it's got keyframes on it. Okay, that's fine. That makes sense. But the thing to keep in mind here would be that this stack list of layers takes precedence. If you want to know what layer you're operating in, look over here. Don't look over here. Kind of a similar thing you see going on with Krita, actually. So I'm going to just hit the Z key here a couple times. And in Blender's case, it kind of goes back through a fairly rigorous... Okay, now this is interesting. Okay. Okay, so now that's interesting. Okay, so that's because the fills are off. So I'm trying to get back. I'm just hitting undo until I get back to what I think that's where I saved it. I could have just reloaded the project, obviously. Okay, so right here we have a problem in the fills layer because her skin is not visible. So we need, obviously, another keyframe right here. So let's go ahead and go into fill mode. Click this little icon right here, and boom. Boom. Okay. Now, because of the camera move... Okay, well, it looks like... Forget what I was about to say. Looks like we're okay. And because everything's moving so fast, frankly, we don't have to be super picky about the tiny, tiny details in the color. So now with that, the problem we actually have is that I need to get a reference for Akari's hair. But that's okay. What I can do short term is take a color that I know is kind of sort of close, and we can always change them in post, so to speak. Okay, so that means we've got some leaks going on. All right, so that's fine. Let's go back here and just kind of start from the start. Okay, so one of the great deficits in my view, but it's a benefit at times depending on how you look at it with the Blender grease pencil, is that if you do a fill on, like right here, as you can see, boom, it only fills to the bottom of the visible area. To me, that is a weird design choice, but okay, it's certainly not the worst thing in the world. So there we've got that. So that's fine. So let's bop up to here, and we need to put those back in. Same situation again. You know, the main issue with it would be that if you look real close, you wind up with these anomalies in between. And what you find is that, whoops, is that if you hit the control key and, you know, you can go in and patch it up. It's not a huge tragedy. But boom. So you see how that didn't fill that well? One of the interesting things about Blender is the fill quality is actually a function of the resolution of the screen. So in other words, I can zoom in and it fills just fine. If it was based on the geometry, then it really shouldn't matter how close I'm zoomed in. The fill should be the same. But actually what happens is, you know, it depends on how close you're zoomed. So is that a bug or is that a feature? I would call it both. In other words, there are shortcomings in the fill algorithm that are made better and easier to deal with by virtue of that design choice. So as winky as the fill tool does seem to be, I will say that the developers did a good job of putting in little fail safes that allow you to compensate for its shortcomings. So that's not too bad. I mean, at least it's possible to get clean fills. You just have to zoom way in and rock and roll. Right? Okay. So, do we really want to fill that? We probably should, just to be safe. So I'm just going to keep going downstream here and looking for stuff that needs to be filled with the hair color. And it looks like that's it. Okay, so now that I've done that, why don't we go in and also fix it up? Fix it up like so. Okay. And by the way, I mean, clearly you can see these all over the place. I mean, look at all these little flaws. We're getting away with murder on this shot, folks, because everything's in motion like all the time. So you're not going to see it. But it's still a little, you know, little bit irritating. Now, when the camera zips down, yeah, see, there's the problem right there. We have to fill these because actually when the camera move happens, those little flaws come right into view, don't they? So there's that. Okay, cool. And so now Akari's dress, which is basically pink, and then that turns out to be pretty much the same color as her eyes as well. Okay, so now here it's going to fill the whole screen, as you can see. What is weird with Blender 2.8 is if I go like this, at least we hope this will work. Nope. See, the problem is it's hit and miss. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Very, very strange. Okay, so I'm going to deliberately cut this off so I have to go in and patch that. I want to see if that makes a difference. Not so much. Now, it could be that I'm just seeing a problem that doesn't exist. Yeah, it could be that this is actually the entire problem. Okay, I want to be careful here. So you can hit the control key and rubber band a shape of color, or you can hit the alt key and actually just paint it in. So before I complain too much about the shortcomings of the fill operation, I better make darn sure I don't have a bunch of leaks that I'm not aware of, and that's actually what's causing the problem. So let's go like that and see. Yeah, kind of, sort of. Okay, so if you really want to guard against that, I think if I just go like that, yeah, just by making that border, we've made it able to fill. So that's okay. It's a kludge, but it is an effective kludge. So again, in this case, I want to just kind of go through here and make sure I'm not causing myself leaking headaches. Yeah. Okay. So now what happens? Okay, right here, same situation. We'll see if it fills, and it did. I got lucky on that one. So I imagine I could probably do the same thing again. And now that could cause a problem. Actually, now that I think about it, yep, I was correct. Okay, so that means I need to go back. I got to undo all that. You can see why. Okay, so here's what I really need to do here. I need to actually draw this kind of sort of the shape of her body. And it really doesn't matter until we see it. So it's actually, this is the one that matters. And so for this one, I'm going to be a little bit more careful to get that sleek shape of her svelte bod. Okay, so that's okay. That'll work. All right, so now we're on this color. We might as well go in and deal with her eyes, since her eyes happen to be the same color as her dress. What a coincidence. So, and again, we can go in later and fine-tune these colors. Okay, so what about her skin? Well, that's a great question. I'm going to keep using this alt trick. I'm just going to keep on cheating. That seems to work pretty well. So, all in all, how are we doing with Blender? Excuse me, Blender 2.8, insofar as, a realistically useful tool for continuing forward with this anime stuff. Basically not that well. I have to say it is more clunky than fun. I mean, that's the truth. That's just my opinion, and it shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, it's all about the work, not the tool. So I do kind of. I'm not totally enamored of the final results in terms of how does it look, how's it working. Here's what I'm going to do here, by the way. I'm going to grab her hair color and then just make it a little darker, because that's pretty much what the hair, what would you call that thing? The little, it's not a barrette, rubber band, I guess. Yeah. See, by zooming in, it fills it properly. Crazy. Yeah, but if it works, it works. Okay, so you can see here we have a change in the inking. And my presumption is things are moving so fast it's not going to matter. Yeah, it's not going to matter. You can't see it. Okay, so what about the whites of her eyes? I think I might have a white color in here already, and I do not. So I'm going to create a new color. So I go plus. So this is an important thing to explain probably if you're a newbie. You want to make a distinction between the list of palette entries here. I'm calling them palette entries. I don't even know what Blender's official. It calls them materials or material indexes. Okay. There's a distinction between the material index and the materials themselves. In other words, your library of materials you can access here is distinct. So this is not a definitive list of available materials. It's a list of materials that you have assigned to this particular, let's call it a palette or a list of materials. Now that's a good design because it makes reusability simpler, and so the point is you create a new material index with this little plus key, and then you decide, well, am I going to use one of my old materials, or am I going to create a new one? In this case, I'm going to create a new one. I don't want it to have a stroke. I only want it to have a fill, and I want the color to be kind of grayish. And the reason I want it to be gray is so I can see what I'm doing. Once I finish doing these fills, I'm going to change it to white. So that's one way that Blender kind of beats some other programs like Krita, because you do have this ability to change the colors after the fact, which is quite nice. That's how OpenToon's palettes work as well. So now what do we want to do to fix this up? I think I'm going to go in. I'm still in fill mode, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Alt key and just paint over this stuff. Okay. Just clean it up sort of by hand. It really does not have to be impeccable, because again, this is all moving really, really fast. But then I'm going to go into the lines layer, charcoal ink, and let's go ahead and do a little bit of touching up here. Let's give this a little bit more distinctive flavor. Right? Okay, and then let's see here, back in the fills layer, I guess we probably should get that. Okay, pause for a moment. Now what we got to address is the sword. And the sword, which first appears here, I believe. Put it this way. This is the only spot where it matters, because it's off screen. So, fine. I basically want, okay, that's interesting. I better save my work. Okay, guys, I just noticed something really weird. Okay, so I'm in camera view, and if I scroll down like this, there's a limit to how far I can go. I have no idea what the reason for that is. I'm going to go into front mode so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so basically, what do we need? We need 3 materials. Now, could we use some of the materials we already have? Let's not. Let's just go 1, 2, 3. New, new, new. Okay, and what I'm going to do, and actually we need to, I probably should have made copies of these because now I have to go through and set this on each one. Not the worst thing in the world, but okay, so what I want to do is basically have a dark gray, a mid gray, and a light gray. That's basically it. And then what I'm going to do, and I'm just totally winging it here, folks, but I think what I want to do is go light gray, mid gray, nope, mid gray here, dark gray on the handle, mid gray here. Did I just use the light gray? I did. Sorry. Okay, so now that those colors are in there, let's massage them a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is actually make this a little lighter. I'm actually going to make them all a little lighter because my outlines have become difficult to see. So that feels pretty good. It'll be made even a little bit better by the shadowing that we're going to add. So we haven't gotten to that yet. So fill, fill, fill. So again, here you can see where, by the way, I think I might have just added a keyframe I didn't really need to. I think that one's erroneous. No, it's not. No, it's not. I had patched her thumbnails, so that's fine. Boom. Fill, fill. Okay. So, going back to here, what did we decide? The handle is going to be the dark one, so therefore mid. Okay, and stop. You see that flaw right there? Okay, so I'm just going to zoom way in and see if that helps. And it did. That solved it. So we're going to boom, boom, boom. Okay, that works. Boom. Okay, obviously we've got a little issue right there. That's okay. We'll go to the dark. Now, fill that. And I'm going to just take the control key and draw a lasso around this. That's close enough for rock and roll. Then of course we need to fill the top. 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 Oh, come on. Okay. Control Z. So I'm not sure why. I thought I hit the up key. Yeah, see, I'm hitting the up key, but it's not, and I don't see any keyframe there, but yet it's jumping. So it jumped between keyframes, which is why it basically glitched. So that's okay. And that one we already did. So there's the handle, 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 handle. Oh, it looks pretty good. Okay, let's save our work. As I always like to say, save early, save often. And let's just see what we have. Not bad. Okay, so, you know, again, it's an action shot, so it's moving pretty fast. Now what we want to do is go to the shadow layer, and the shadow layer has an interesting property. And the interesting property is this, what is it, right here. It's called mask layer. This is really useful. Let me show you why. First of all, I'm going to go to the filled shadow right here. And I'm going to go ahead and go into draw mode actually, so that I can just draw a shape. Okay, so that makes it easy because it's got the alpha quite low, 0.15, so 15% opaque. Makes nice shadows, and it'll appropriately shadow any color that I put the shadow over. By clicking this icon right here, boom, you're locking whatever you draw in this in the shadow layer to the opacity of whatever layers are underneath it. and that's called mask layer. In Krita, that's called inherit alpha. It's the same thing. It's definitely useful. So now what I need to do is I could hit undo a bunch of times, but instead I'm going to hit Control. Actually, what I'm going to do is hit Tab. So I'm in edit mode. Click there, and then I'm going to hit X, and I'm going to delete the stroke. Boom. So it gets rid of the whole thing. Now I can go Control Tab, go back into draw mode, and we are ready to do shadows. Now, Akari's got the actually, let's just transition back here to the show and have a look. Basically, she's right there facing into the window, and she turns her head sideways, but we lose context, so we really don't know. And when I did this, it was edited so that it starts after her head turns. So okay, so that answers my question. So what that means is right here, effectively the window is right behind her. So that informs how we're going to do the shadowing. All right. Now the one thing with the shadows, because it is a 15% opaque color, if I put a shadow on, this is actually one of the cool things about it, is I can actually layer it up. All right. Generally, I don't do that too much, but what that also means is I need to be careful to, as much as possible, create the shadow as a single shape, which in this case actually presents a problem because now that shadow is in here. That's actually an interesting conundrum that I've never really bumped into before. But the solution would probably be to, let's keep her head and body basically separated from each other for the purpose of shadowing. So I really am just winging it here, but I'm thinking if I go like this, boom. Okay, that'll work. And then what I want to do is kind of, since I'm following the contour here, shoot, I blew it. Because if I follow the contour, I should be able to put this in shadow in such a way that you can't see the border between the strokes. We'll see how well that works, because frankly, it's definitely a bit of a kludge here. I'm gonna say this. Yeah, see, look at that. That's not good. This is a situation you really don't want to get into. Let me backtrack and start over. I may have to speed up the video, so whether or not the video starts moving fast as you're watching this will reveal what I decided. But this, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave the ponytail as a separate element. So let's go ahead and get her all in shadow. And then I'm going to go ahead and solo this layer by hitting the star key. And then I'm going to hit Control Tab and go into sculpt mode so that I can just make some adjustments here, like so. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So now I can unsolo the layer, go back into draw mode, and then what I want to do is go ahead and put a shadow on her ponytail. Like so. Okay, that works. Cool. So now I guess our next keyframe is going to be here. This one will be easier because all we need to do is just trace around like so. And okay, that was stupid. Again, this is good practice. It forces me to go into sculpt mode. And this is one of the nice things about Blender. This is where Blender kind of kicks butt, you know, in that this ability to kind of go in and sculpt your strokes is really nice. I actually don't do it a lot. I'm actually more likely to just go into edit mode and use proportional editing. Don't ask me why. It's just my habit. But yeah, this sculpting ability is definitely quite useful. And now if I go, I believe it is shift space, I can go into smoothing mode and actually smooth those strokes out a bit. I have to say the smoothing is definitely not as aggressive as I prefer, but rather than go in and tweak the preferences at this moment, I just as soon just paint over it a lot until it gets pretty close to where I want it to be. So again, that's shift spacebar. Shift spacebar. And generally I want to be in grab mode, as you can see, but occasionally I go into smoothing mode as well. Okay, so let's keep going forward. Now that one's going to be pretty close. What I think I'm going to do on this one is just duplicate that key and then use sculpting to whip it into shape, because I don't want to have to recreate the shape of the shadow over here and expect to get it, you know, close enough. The odds of drawing it the same are basically nil, near zero kind of thing. So, okay, so is it okay there? I think that's okay. And so really now we're okay. Lesson learned. This is a problem. Okay, we've got the fill. Okay, so I guess what we'll do is, this is where edit mode will be helpful, I think. Let's do it this way. Okay, whatever we have in this frame is what's going to propagate through the camera moves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit, actually just hit tab. And then this is where I'm going to do what I said before. I'm going to hit the O key to go into proportional editing. And let's see, let's do that again. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use B for box select, go like that. Okay, and now I'm going to go just stretch this out like that. Okay, and when I hit the G key, now I'm just hitting the G key as opposed to doing like a click and drag, so that the so that I can alter the strength of the influence in real time, which I'm not really doing much of, but at least I could. Now, would this have been better with sculpting? I don't know. Now, if you see a situation like this, you say, well, it would be better with sculpting. I really want to sculpt it. Here's what you can do. Grab a hold of it, and actually, let's do it this way. Let's use B key to select these. And then what I want to do, and I don't even know in Blender 2.8, I don't know how to do it, but I know we can do it, which is we want to go, probably, we don't want interpolation. What we want to do is we want to take the strokes and join them. Okay, it did not join them. Why didn't it join them? Okay, well, let's do it this way. Let's just delete the points. Okay, that's fine. Okay, yeah, I mean, that'll work. It's no longer closed, and now I've got to search for the hotkey for turning this into a cyclic or a cyclic shape. Maybe it's still C, I don't know. Doesn't seem to be. Let's look up here. Strokes, it should be make cyclic, toggle cyclic right there. Okay, and it appears it didn't do anything actually, because we should see a line right there. But in any case, what we can do now is grab this like that, and then hit the W key and subdivide this a few times. Okay, so now that we've subdivided it, now we can go in and hit Control Tab and go into sculpt mode and massage this into exactly the shape we prefer. Make sense? So there it is. Alright, so now I'm going to go back into draw mode just to kind of see what I've got. And what we see is that we need to go ahead and shade this guy. So I'm going to go in again to front mode, and we're just going to do shadows, right? So with the blade, we're going to put a shadow here, a shadow here, and a shadow here, and then we're going to double up like so, like so, and I'm going to say something like that. I mean, that's okay. The last one was kind of stupid, but you get the idea. We're just trying to go for something that looks pretty dimensional, and then what we'll have to do is start adding some keys up here. So with that, let's follow the camera, and right here, what we really want to do here is duplicate this key. And the reason we want to duplicate the key is so that I don't have to reproduce all this shadowing here. Now I can just go ahead and add some shadowing on her hand, and we're good to go. Go 2 frames forward. Yep, I'm going to do the same thing again, mainly just again because of the blade. And then what I want to do is go into edit mode, and I'm just going to delete that stroke. Boom, gone forever, baby. And now I can go back into draw mode and put an appropriate shadow on her hand. Unfortunately, I do have to kind of paint around the blade here to sort of pull this off. So, not the biggest tragedy ever. 1, 2, and gosh, yeah, I really gave myself a bit of a headache here because trying to, well, the good news is that mostly I did it all in single strokes. So, okay, so we don't want that. So yeah, we really need to get rid of that right there and redo it for this particular frame. So that's cool, no big deal. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and let all this be lost in shadow like so, and then give it a double dose here so that it looks like her hand is sort of putting it more in shadow than it otherwise would be. So yeah, I mean, come on, we're just making this up as we go along, right? All right, and finally, same situation here. Actually, you know what? Forget that. Here we're going to just go, we're just going to redraw the shadowing like so. Okay, so this is going to be in shadow like so. Alright, her hand is definitely going to be, whoops, don't like that. And like that. Okay, I think that'll work. And believe it or not, we would be done except for the fact that I would like a highlight layer. So I'm going to put this as a masked layer as well. I'm going to call this highlights so that we can go in and there's the highlight color. Keep it fairly simple, but at least have a little bit of highlight action going on. Okay, here, similar situation. Whoops, I don't want that to be too straight. Okay, how about a little bit there? Same thing again. It's getting a little bit sloppy, folks. Let's do it like this. It's not too bad. Probably a little bit here. Okay, let's dupe this. And, actually, you know what? I'm not even going to mess with that one. Okay, so now do we want to even mess with highlights in the blade? I think so, but only in the sense that we're going to do this. Alright. And we'll leave that where it is because that's what a reflection would actually do, right? So that's cool. Did that disappear? Oh, okay. Let me see if the camera sees that. It does. So I think what we really want to do here, my bad. I think what we'll do is we'll just move this back to here because at this point the camera can't see it. Okay. So what we need to do is turn that keyframe on like right here. So that, because I don't want to do it earlier because the highlights on her did actually change between the keys. So we got to basically do it in between like that. Okay. So pretty much there's our shot. And now the question of background needs to be addressed. This has taken almost an hour, so I think I'm going to end it here. I think when this renders out, it's going to look pretty good. Let's see here. So let's just watch it from beginning to end, and then we'll wrap this video. And I will have to paint a background. I think. I don't think I'm going to be able to just pull something out of the archives. Okay, and here we're kind of getting away with murder from that frame to that frame, only because it goes by really, really fast. And you know what we could do? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to change the camera move so that it stops here. And that way the camera will still be in motion when this little winkiness here takes place. So it'll be way less obvious. So I'm going to go to the dope sheet. And again, going back to what I said earlier, I need to grab the camera. Camera animation. Camera. Why are we not seeing dope sheet? Summary. Stroke. Why are we... Oh, I know why. I'll bet you I have to be in object mode. It's kind of obnoxious. Object mode. Now if I select the camera... Yep, there it is. Okay, cool. So what did I say I wanted to do? I said I wanted to make it so this camera move actually stops there. So all we got to do is drag that over there. Yeah, see, now you don't even see it. Isn't that amazing? Well, that's what you do. I mean, these are the sort of tricks you use. And I think, frankly, if this even had some motion blur on it, might be cool. And so I'll consider that. But at this point, what needs to happen is a good background painting. So that's going to be a bit of a planning job because I really need to. I need to really pull back, look at the entire environment right here. And actually, why don't we do this? Let's go back to grease pencil here. And why don't we put in a new layer, and let's just call it BKGD, which is my universal abbreviation for background. And go into our red pencil. Draw mode. Over here, what is it? Sorry about this. This right here, specifying what brush you're using. Yeah, they put it up here. Okay, the release of Blender 2.8 was the first time this showed up over here. It always has been up here. And I think this was a monumentally stupid decision, but that's my opinion. It used to always be at your fingertips and no longer. So anyway, so I'm going back to the draw pencil. Yeah, really, I think just a foolish decision. It's not that it was necessarily objectively a bad idea, but when it worked a certain way for a year, and then right down through the alpha releases, it was always here, and then when they get to the I believe the beta as well, up until the final release, they change it. You just go, really, dudes? That's what you're going to do, huh? Okay. So what's interesting about this shot from a design standpoint is that this is actually quite interesting. I'm going to turn the camera off here so we can't see it. Because what's interesting about this is that we've got to... Okay, hold on a second. This is really where we need to draw. Okay. So from a perspective standpoint, I think right here would be the kind of our floor situation. Okay, it'd be something like this. Okay. So let's just say that's our actual point of I'm sorry, guys. I'm having a brain fart here on the term for in perspective your vanishing point. I guess it's the vanishing point. Okay, so here's your actual vanishing point. This would be the floor, and this kind of works. So now, in this approach, this would be the window that's behind her. Okay, like so. That seems about right. And then out here, obviously, you've got these mountains, some clouds floating around. Okay, so now let's go to camera view and see if this looks right. Okay, that would be the wall behind her. Yeah, I mean, that's perfect. That's perfect. Cool. That's what we needed. So now all I have to do is go ahead and paint that. Maybe I'll just do a quick render of what I had there, and then we'll, or a screenshot even would do the trick. Let's do a screenshot. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to pull out far enough so I can see what I was doing. I'm going to hit Alt Print Screen. Guys, should I just go ahead and do this right now? It's really tempting to. Let's go into Krita. And let's make this full HD. In fact, I'm going to make it US. Yeah, I'm going to make it big. Big, baby. Okay, so now we want that transparent. I'm going to hit Control V. And then I'm going to hit the A key. And what I'm doing here is I'm simply going to scale this up so it fits in the doggone window, right? Like so. There's our background. All right. And I think I'll lock that layer. That's interesting. Now Krita has to sort of do a pre-render situation when you lock a layer. Did not see that coming, but that's all right. Okay, so now the question is, B key. Okay, yeah. So Krita's stacking situation is that the top is on top of the stack as opposed to thinking of it as a downward flow through the stack. So stuff on top is on top in Krita. In some programs, the stuff on top is actually on the bottom of the stack because you're thinking of it as a flow from here down to here, right? And each time you add something at the bottom, it's ostensibly covering up what was there before. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my pencil and take this, turn it down a little bit. Okay, I just really want to sketch this in just so I know where stuff is supposed to be. Okay, so there's my vanishing point. Floorboards. Whoops. Keep them straight. Okay, so now with that, let's just block in simple areas of color here. Okay, maybe I should save this. We'll save this as a Krita file. And what shot are we on? We're on shot number 86, which I did not save, by the way. Okay, so we'll call this 0086 BKGD for background. All right. Now, there it goes. A minute ago, it's like, okay, it won't draw the rectangle. What the heck? All right, and now here, kind of a similar situation. Want to draw a rectangle. All right, now let's turn the guide off. Okay, perfect. All right, so now what we want is a little bit of twilight here. Yep, close enough for rock and roll. A little bit of floor action here. Yeah, that'll work. Come on, fill it in, Krita. Krita's a little pokey when things are big. Frankly, Krita does not handle really large images. You would think it would be just like the best, but it's, in my experience, it's not. It's really, GIMP does frankly a better job of. Oh, I'm getting a call from my daughter, so I have to go. There will be more later.